Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to publish on dead platforms like YouTube.
Yeah, we figured we'd take a page from Papa PlayStation's big book of earning lots of money. Hey, if they're still chasing seemingly dying platforms like VR for some reason, then it's gotta be a good idea.
We can't hold a candle to their death march, though. Not only are they sticking with the tech that has yet to find mass market appeal, but they have big brass trophies so huge that they decided to make the PSVR2 more expensive than the PlayStation 5 itself.
Yeah, Meta's slowly sinking into a volcano. The economy's in the shitter, and here's Sony asking for $500,000 so that you can sit on a little Horizon boat.
You know what, Lawrence? I'm going to say it. Sony's done it again.
Yeah, is the situation as bad as we make it sound, or are we just playfully rage-baiting Sony fans? It's probably both. But let's cover the recent announcements and mix in a little market analysis and see if we can't crawl our way back to journalistic objectivity.
All right, we'll need to check in with our staff virtual realist, Yami, who never met a reality she didn't like. Yami, how's it looking out there?
Expensive! I could barely afford to live in this reality, and now we got this other one?
Yeah, those virtual avocado toasts really leave a dent in the old bank account, don't they?
Here's the news to go along with that $400 brunch. The PSVR2 is set to launch next year on February 22nd, close to my birthday, at a price of nearly $550 US. Don't get me that for my birthday. It comes with the headset, headphones, and of course, the new PSVR2 Sense controllers. Sony announced the news in a PlayStation blog post, with VP Isabel Tomatis saying that the new headset will allow you to escape into new worlds while feeling a groundbreaking sense of immersion. And we're gonna guess that feels awfully similar to a back-breaking sense of credit card debt. Tomatis also touts some other goodies in the VR2 kit, like a slimmer and lighter design compared to the first PlayStation VR, integrated air vents, and a lens adjustment dial. Sony is currently taking pre-orders for the headset through its online store starting on November 15th, but you can register for a pre-order right now.
No, thank you. Man, that cost, huh? That is a... did Sony just shoot themselves in the foot with this new hardware before it even launches? Let's look through all the factors surrounding PlayStation VR and VR in general and see if Sony's truly lost touch.
Yeah, first, the biggest one of all, the cost. So we finally got full tech specs and a price, so we can finally start to make some market comparisons to what's available right now. $550 does make it more expensive than the base console itself, but as far as VR headsets go, it's pretty far from the most expensive option.
Yeah, at $550, PSVR 2 is more expensive than the Oculus Quest 2, which launched in October 2020 for an introductory base price of $300. But it's since been raised to $400. But it's far cheaper than the new MetaQuest Pro, which is nearly $1,500. It's also significantly less expensive than the Valve Index, which still clocks in at just under $1,000.
So like its predecessor, the PlayStation VR 1, Sony's positioning its second headset as a mid-range device. Actually, with the MetaQuest 2 now at a base price of $400, it's really not too far from one of the cheapest VR kits you can get.
And spec-wise, it stacks up pretty well against the pricier Quest Pro. TechRadar notes that panel resolution for the PSVR 2 is 2000 by 2040 per eye, compared to just 1800 by 1920 on the Quest Pro, which costs almost 3 times as much. Again, I'm glad this is written out. I'm so bad at math. They said that it also appears to beat the Quest Pro in field of view, about 110 degrees for the PSVR 2 versus 96 degrees for the Quest Pro. So, by the numbers, PSVR 2 is actually great hardware for the cost, even if the cost seems high when compared with the PS5 itself. Then again, nobody's actually used it yet, so we don't know if the numbers PlayStation posted will cleanly convert to a better user experience.
Sony's got another advantage in tech, the controllers. PSVR 2 will also include features like headset feedback, eye tracking, 3D audio, and the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback from the PSVR 2 Sense controllers.
Sony appropriately touted a lot of these features on the PlayStation 5 controller, and they're clearly hyping them up as a selling point for the new headset as well, saying that they will, quote, captivate players' senses and offer an incredibly deep feeling of immersion.
They keep saying that. So even though the sticker price of PSVR 2 is somewhat shocking, it seems like it's aggressively priced for the tech it offers and the hardware it's competing with.
Yeah, but even if it's a good value, and yes, value is a comparative word here, Does anyone care? Does it even matter? Is there any appetite for VR at any cost? Yeah, the shaking of the head already.
That's really the question. This isn't Sony's first foray into VR. Its first headset, which released in 2016, sold 5 million units as of early 2020, which is nothing to sneeze at. By some accounts, that makes it the second best-selling headset of all time after the Oculus Quest 2.
Now, second best doesn't sound so bad, but it depends what race you're running, I guess. And if you compare it against the usual might of Sony's hardware, it kind of comes up lacking.
If you're not first, you're last. Sony sold 117.2 million PlayStation 4s total, which means PlayStation VR only had an attach rate of 4.2%. We obviously don't know what Sony's expectations were for PlayStation VR, but it's hard to imagine they were trading crisp high fives over that. Proper comparisons are hard to find when it comes to PlayStation VR though. Nintendo's found varying success selling additional plastic to go along with their consoles. For example, out of an install base of 114.3 million Switches, Nintendo has sold 14.8 million Ring Fit Adventures. That's an attach rate of 12.9 for a peripheral that admittedly is far cheaper than a $550 VR headset.
Yeah, it's not like every peripheral from Nintendo hits the record-setting status of the Wii Balance board, though. Last we learned, Labo only sold about 1.39 million, and then Mario Kart Live Home Circuit moved about 1.27 million units.
So they don't have the touch of gold, although they do make a lot of money. So PSVR did better than some console peripherals and worse than others. Like we said, there's not really an apples-to-apples comparison to find in the console space yet because it's so much more expensive and it's almost considered its own platform. The only real takeaway we can get out of this context is that console peripherals do have the potential to sell gangbusters. We just bet the first PSVR didn't bust up any gangs.
Yeah, you're right. Sony's got a real superpower that Meta and other VR platforms do not have, though. They have the software. Sony's got some massive franchises. They're already busting out one of the biggest to give its new headset a boost.
It's not Last of Us VR. Good God, that would be terrible. No. Horizon Call of the Mountain, which appears to be launching at the same time as the headset. Sony's actually selling a bundle with the game included for almost $600.
So that's a sign that Sony's putting some brand firepower behind their PSVR 2, considering how well the Horizon franchise tends to sell. Sony says they're expecting to have more than 20 games available when the PSVR 2 launches in February.
That's good! But PSVR 2 is not backwards compatible with games that came out on its predecessor. Sony's senior VP of Platform Experiences, Hideaki Nishino, announced that disappointing news earlier this year, saying that hardware differences made it impossible. Specifically, he said that PSVR games are not compatible with PSVR 2 because PSVR 2 is designed to truly deliver a next-generation VR experience. That means that developing games for PSVR 2 requires a whole different approach than the original PSVR.
Does it? I don't know. That's often used as a reason why they can't do backwards compatibility because the new thing is just way so much better. There's just no way.
Yeah, sure.
But there kind of is, though. It's kind of the same interface. They could. It's just, I think it's more the PS4 as a platform is really hard to do backwards compatibility with in general. So whatever the reason, for $550, you'll get a fresh library and only one star power game. That's not the most inviting purchase, really. And the lack of backwards compatibility stings extra hard because the PSVR did have some highlight games like Astro Bot Rescue Mission and Beat Saber, although we can probably bet Beat Saber is going to appear on PSVR too.
Oh, yeah. But clearly Astrobot didn't send PSVR kits flying off the store shelves. Maybe Horizon Call of the Mountain will?
Or maybe it won't. Who knows? This is the strategy that Valve tried to use to move index units, after all, with less than stellar results. Half-Life Alyx, the banner launch title for the Valve Index, only just crested 2 million installs by the end of 2020, and that was supposed to be a hit franchise with tons of baked-in interest because nobody had seen it since Orange Box in 2007.
Yeah, but the Index is almost twice as expensive. It was $1,000, and it assumes pricey PC hardware behind it. Also, Horizon might be a bigger property than Half-Life at this point. Maybe it is. Horizon Zero Dawn sold 20 million copies as of February 2022.
So maybe Horizon can move the mountains that Half-Life couldn't, which hurts to say. As for the VR industry overall, it's still relatively small, but it has enjoyed outrageous growth in the past couple of years.
Worldwide shipments of AR and VR headsets grew 92% year over year in 2021, with shipments of 11.2 million units, according to the International Data Corporation, which totally sounds like a made-up name. Is that a real place? I'm not even sure. The International Data Corporation. That's like one of those corporations that made a robot in RoboCop or something.
Welcome to IDC, protecting you and your family.
They put the spike mostly on sales of the Meta's Quest 2 over the holiday season. That's what made all those units move.
That spike is largely because the Quest 2 debuted at $300 on the low end in 2020. At that price, the Quest 2 occupied 78% of the AR and VR market in 2021, with more than half the total year's sales volumes happening in the holiday season. It was a cheap gift hitting at the exact same time when folks were in quarantine and gaming spending had surged. Since then, the Quest 2 has since increased in price, kind of like the PlayStation 5. It may be a different story for the PSVR2 over the course of 2023, which will hit holiday 2023 at nearly double the price.
Still, IDC unsurprisingly expects this sales surge to last forever. They estimate that total headsets shipped will increase 5 times in 2026 to 50 million total headsets. Although market indications show anything other than ballooning VR sales at the moment.
Yeah, the world's largest VR initiative, Meta, is currently exploding. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg even specifically acknowledged over-enthusiasm when apologizing for the waves of layoffs that are about to hit that company.
That probably makes it feel way better, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I was too excited. Sorry that you lost your job now.
I just wanted to be in Lawnmower Man. Anyway, you get 3 weeks severance. See you later. Yeah, and on top of that, just in gaming and tech in general, a lot of the financial reports we've seen have shown sort of retracted profits from 2021 because all that spending surge because of COVID quarantine is starting to wear off. It's not like people are losing ground, but they're not keeping all the ground that they gained in the last 2 years, basically.
From our perspective, Sony's getting good tech out there for the price, and they have the brand power to move some units. The market kind of seems to think otherwise in nearly every way, though. That's kind of the problem. There's an economic downturn happening right now. It's on the horizon, maybe even more so in 2023. So I don't know how many people are going to spend money on a PSVR 2.
Yeah, but what do you think? Everyone in this video and beyond, do you think the PSVR 2 will succeed? Or will it be just another pile of plastic that collects dust next to the Guitar Hero controllers and balance boards at the Goodwill?
Oh wait, Yami's got one right there.
Yeah.
And I haven't played it in over a year.
Yeah, there you go. My index is I'm staring at it right now, and I paid $1,000 for this headset. And I maybe used it a year and a half ago, like 18 months ago or something.
Right.
Yeah, I used mine when Myst came out. That was pretty cool, but...
I love Lady Gaga's Beat Saber. That's about it.
I gotta be honest, I just don't know what Sony sees in VR. Because they seem so buttoned up in the rest of their business. They only make the things that will sell a ton. They make the things they'll make a lot of money off of. The only thing I can see is kind of like Valve. They probably see VR as a way to push out the boundaries of their digital ecosystem a little bit. They make so much money selling DLC in digital games because they take their 30% cut. So if they can have a new platform to sell more games on, then they kind of benefit double over because they get more users on their system and those users are in their ecosystem giving them all their money. But I just don't like that implies that they're still kind of in this land grab mindset like Valve kind of was and like Meta was when they thought that there would be fresh pastures of new monthly active users to corral with VR. And it really seems like that window is closed and everyone kind of agreed that the tech's not where it needs to be. So I don't know that VR2 solves a lot of those problems. It's one cord, which is nice. Apparently it's lighter, which is really nice. I don't know if that puts it over the boundary to be mass market, but Sony seems to think so. My dark hope is that someone at Sony is just dedicated to it in terms of the art of it. Like sometimes Sony does that. They just get so up on the poetic nature of video games that they decide to throw a lot of money behind a thing, even if it doesn't really make a ton of market sense. So my hope is that there is some executive at Sony that has developers that have pitched them, Journey and Unfinished Swan, the VR versions of those things. So they're like, yes, this will round out the artistic nature of PS5 because they haven't really been making any of those games anymore. Maybe VR is where they all go. I
think it's for money. They want to be able to. I think it's more for that. I don't think it's the art thing. That'd be cool though. But I personally don't think that VR is the future everyone's talking about. I don't see it. I'm like, no. Okay, Ready Player One in my wildest dreams would be awesome. But at that point, I think you have to inject my mind into that VR space because I'm not going around running around and like shooting up the place. I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna hurt myself. Absolutely. Like I'm more of an AR girl, I think, living in a VR world right now where I'm just more excited for AR capabilities of things than I am for VR. So I don't know why gaming insists on these like clunky headsets and like weird peripherals and like, oh, you need to stay within this space and you can't move from it. Like that, not for me.
I kind of agree with both of you. Also, we just don't have the killer app for VR. I really thought Half-Life Alyx was going to be the closest thing to a killer app you were going to get for VR.
Yeah.
And that was going to cause adoption, and it just didn't happen. I mean, Half-Life Alyx it's an amazing video game. I loved it. Probably one of my favorite of all time. But nobody's played it, and you need a really expensive headset to play. And I especially think in the next 2 years, no one's spending money on VR. So maybe in 2024, 2025, around there, we'll start to get there. But I really thought VR was going to be the future, just like I thought 3D televisions and movies were going to be the future. And turns out those are not the future. So I don't know. I really don't know.
All those things listed, like VR, 3D movies, they give me headaches. So I'm like, I hope that's not the future.
Hey, here are some patrons that live their lives in VR, just like Ready Player One. The Creatures with Nerds Brews Gaming, Crab Foam, Rook, it was Captain Coldblood, and Christopher Glavin.
I got some patrons that live life in VR too, only they're trapped. And they don't even know it. You guys, if you hear your name here, you got to go spin a top right now. John McLaughlin, David Milne, Charles Gard, and Matt, I hope you find your way to the exit someday.